So where are we? Well, we are at page 1 of my World Classic Literature book list. There is a free version of this for you in PDF format down below, which you can get. And I talked a lot about this book list that I created and introduced it in a prior meeting. So go check that out. So here we are, the classical period, and then we have Homeric or the heroic period, the epic, the epics, the Odyssey, the Iliad, and then I've slotted in there the Epic of Gilgamesh. So it's from and it has that has a tilde symbol there, that little squiggle in front of the 2100 BCE. I'm inside that red circle right now. So from about, that tilde means approximately, about 2100 BCE, third dynasty of Ur, and it happened in ancient Mesopotamia. And I'll show you a map later on here where that's at. So the creation of the story started a long, long time ago, and it went through probably an evolutionary process, and it was spread widely all over. They find fragments of the story over multiple locations, but the copy, the version that I have here, and it's probably around 1100 BCE. This is not the oldest story that we have on Earth created by humans. This is the oldest story found so far by humans. And who knows, we might find something else tomorrow, in a decade, half a century, sometime later, where we get, there are fragments of stories that we have already. But the Epic of Gilgamesh is complete, although damaged. It's complete, but it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. So let's look at just some basic facts about the book itself, so we understand just exactly which book that I'll be talking about here in this preview, and then also later with the review here. So we have the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is the second edition. We don't know who the author is. There may have been multiple authors. It's translated and edited by Benjamin R. Foster, and the publisher is W. Norton and Company. This is a Norton Critical Edition. It was published in 2019, and just so you know exactly which book I'm talking about, I put the ISBN 13 number in there. Now, sometimes, though, the publisher will use that same ISBN 13 number. The contents are the same, but they'll give a different cover, which I don't like. I really like this cover here. I like the uniformity that's offered with that. The genre for the Epic of Gilgamesh, this is an epic poem. And this means, because it's epic, it means that it's happening over a large area of land. It's got some magical components to it. So you're in some different magical places. And it also uses heroes. We have powerful people doing powerful things. And so, we that's another feature here when you've got mighty characters in there, and they are seen as heroes. So these are classic characteristics of an epic poem. Now, when I say poem, this is not a rhyming kind of a poem like a Dr. Seuss, shake hands, Jake, shake hands, Jack, shake hands, shake, 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 shake. You get the idea. This is a poem in the sense that there is a rhythm of sounds that are created based upon what the original author created, with the words that they specifically chose to have that pattern. Now, some of these writings were set to music, but the scholars are saying that there isn't evidence to support that. This was probably written in cuneiform, and then it was just simply read aloud to small groups of people. But it was read aloud over a long period of time, hundreds, centuries and centuries and centuries. The publisher shows that there's 272 pages. So some descriptors that come to my mind is it's mosaic-like, and in that I mean it just has this kind of an ancient feel to it. You know, you've seen some mosaic artworks where they're very beautiful, but they're also kind of fragmented as well. That's what I mean by mosaic-like. I also think it's magical. You know, you have the two protagonists walking through the scented cedar forest, and you're hearing the roar of the monster in the distance. And then also emotive, because there are some powerful feelings, powerful emotions that are surging throughout this book. When the characters speak, they are using mighty language. It's sweeping, it's majestic. And so, trigger warnings, there is sexual content, there's sexual assault, there's male on female rape, there's death, violence, war, grief, and misogyny, or grieving process, misogyny in the sense of prejudice towards females. The females are subjugated to the males. So I wanted to give you a short sample of what the writing is like to give you an idea of how hard or how easy it is, so you can decide for yourself. This sample comes from book 5, and it's when the two protagonists are walking in the cedar-scented forest. The cedar was dappled 60 cubits high with exudation. The resin oozed out, dribbling down like raindrops. It flowed out so that ditches had to carry it away. Throughout the forest, the bird life was chirping, answering each other in rhythmic din. The cicada raised a shrill chorus, was singing, was piping. A pigeon was cooing, a turtle dove answering. The forest was joyous with the cry of the stork. The forest was lavishly joyous with the francolin's tilt. Mother monkey kept up their calls. Baby monkeys chirruped like a band of musicians and drummers. They resounded all day long in the presence of Hum Baba. So what's included in the book? Let's see. Obviously, you have the Epic of Gilgamesh. It comes with an introduction. It's got pictures in it that I didn't find in other translations. I love pictures. In the back, it has something called the analogues to the Epic of Gilgamesh. We have the Sumerian Gilgamesh poems. There are some scholarly essays. There's other bits of the story that were found in other tablets that didn't fit with the main story, but they included them here. The birth of Gilgamesh. There's some Gilgamesh adventures in here, as well as some scholarly essays that I previously mentioned. The notes, the annotations are down at the bottom of the page, so there are footnotes, and they are throughout, which is really, really nice to have. Even later on, it's throughout the book that they have the footnotes. And then at the very end, they don't have any maps. This book does not have any maps. Not sure why. Maybe they think you can get your own maps. Then at the very end, they have something called the glossary of proper names. So this has very short descriptions of locations, or also characters that appear. For example, you have Aruru, and she's one of the gods. She's a goddess of birth, credited with the creation of human beings. So here is a map. It's funny that The Norton Critical Edition does not include maps. Here you can see in green at an angle, it's written at the center of the map, Mesopotamia. And this is covered in the modern day countries of Syria and Iraq. In there, you can see some old cities there. We have Nineveh. We also have, that's kind of up above. If you look at the letter P of Mesopotamia, you go up, you'll run into Nineveh. And then down below, we have Uruk. So here we have the time span. I'm using a timeline down there at the bottom or the middle of the page from 1600 BC over to 1000 BC. And these are approximate dates, approximate years. So this is the creation of the Epic of Gilgamesh. So the story comes to us mostly on two tablets. There's one that comes from the Babylonian period, and then there's a newer one. And so the translators have cobbled together the story to try to make sense out of that. As you saw, when I read a sample to you, there were there were brackets sometimes, and that's where the translator is saying, "Well, we've got some other information here, so we're able to fill in the blank," because these are written on clay tablets, and they get a little bit crumbly, a little bit crunchy. It's like an old cookie that's crumbling, and so these clay tablets. And they come to us damaged. What can I say? There are other adventures that Gilgamesh has, but it doesn't seem to fit into those two main tablets that's creating the main story. It's wonderful that this story was told over so many centuries all over, because they're able to find different versions of the story and then cobble together a story. They were This story was probably shared in in schools, and students learned about this story. It could have been private, small groups, small interest groups, but likely it was not sung um, like the Iliad and the Odyssey was sung by Homer, apparently. So yeah, so the other interesting thing about the Epic of Gilgamesh is that it splashed down into our world of English speakers in the 19th century, in the 1800s, which I think is pretty surprising that it comes to us that late. It's interesting to also think that any time, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, or whenever, they could discover another tablet and then be able to add more information. So it's interesting if you get the Norton Critical Edition, um, when you're reading the text, you're going to get to see the those brackets. And so, like I say, if there's words inside of there, then that's the translator who's restoring it. They found another source, they can add to it. And if they couldn't, and it's just that's where the cookie crumbled, then they're going to put three dots in there to let you know something is missing. And the cool thing about that is you get to kind of like look over their shoulder. You're doing an investigation here of sorts. You are kind of exploring and seeing just exactly what is offered here. Now, this translation that we have is done by Mr. Foster, and he's extremely knowledgeable. He's an erudite scholar in this area, so we are seeing just the accurate way possible of what's on those tablets. Okay, so during this time, writing systems were being invented, and so this is the oldest complete crumbly complete story that we have that's been found. It's not the oldest story, but it's the oldest story that has been found. So, we don't know. There may be other stories that are discovered before that. And this story, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is interesting to read because it is so old and it's the oldest one that we have. But it's also interesting to actually see what happened. You know, what happened in this work. Stories. They have to have characters. They have to have a setting. They need to have a plot. The characters are doing something. Do we have these elements back in the oldest found story on Earth? And what was it like? What were their ideas? Was it imaginative? What were these people's values like? We get to travel back in time and be detectives and investigate this. I think that's a good attitude to have when we turn our attention to the Epic of Gilgamesh. So let's see, 1600 BCE, and then we're going along here. We have the Bronze Age ending there. Looks like around 1200 BCE. Troy is destroyed in 1250 BCE. And in 1000 BCE, ironworks becomes very widespread. Ironworks are being developed during this time. So bronze is winding down, the Bronze Age is winding down, and ironworks is kind of going on. You know, how that whole skill, how that trade is being created, how it's being developed. But as we get closer to 1000 BCE, the ironworks becomes just, it proliferates much more all over the area. So I have 4 suggestions for you. Besides, I talked a little bit about like the kind of attitude to have when we come to the book, that this is not a Disney movie. This is not fashioned in the usual way I think that we, get our entertainment. But that being said, if we can approach this as like we're doing an investigation ourselves, we're going into the time machine, going back in time to see how did they make stories. I mean, what were they like? What were the values of the people like? I'm always interested in like, what does a culture think is right? What does a culture think is wrong, and why? So some suggestions I have to help prepare you for reading the Epic of Gilgamesh. The first big one is don't read the introduction first. In fact, I recommend in this case, it's a relatively short poem. I think the writing is pretty approachable, pretty accessible. So I would recommend just reading the poem first before you read any other extra material. Read the introduction after you read the poem, and you will understand the introduction a lot more. So if you don't mind spoilers, then you can read whatever you want there, but the introduction and the other extra material that they have is going to have spoilers for you in there. If you turn towards other animated like movies or something, little shorts that they have, obviously that's going to give you spoilers as well too. I mean, if you want to see them afterwards, I'm finding that they have a lot of errors. They have plenty of errors, plenty of mistakes in there, and that can cause a lot of confusion. Now, another idea I have here is to print out the reading experience evaluation form that I have for free for you, and that's down below. You can print that out, and then you'll have that with your book when you're done reading the poem, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Then fill out that form. When we meet again, then I'll go over mine and we can compare. So, looking ahead, our next meeting will be the same title, The Epic of Gilgamesh, but it will be the review. So, this one's a preview for preparation, and the next one that I'm going to do, the next meeting for us, is going to be the review for reflection. And I'll go through the book and kind of discuss my insights that I got for it, and then I'll go through and fill out that evaluation of the reading experience and go through that for you.